What is up, Coordination? On the pod today, we got Brigham Adams, who is the founder and chief scientist at Goodly Labs, which is an R&D lab focusing on developing collective intelligence systems for a self-improving society. That work includes training AI systems and building pro-social software to provide social structural scaffolding so that could improve society. So I met Brigham at the Plurality Conference in San Francisco a few months ago, and I just found him to be a really talented facilitator of the conversations that we were having there. But also, I just really respect people who have the ability to make plays and to be an entrepreneur and to ship software, but also the theory, the sort of synthesis of all of the things that are happening in the world, the current trends, and basically having strong a priori knowledge, theoretical knowledge, and then empirical knowledge that's derived from experience. And so, fun episode. Brigham's just a really galaxy brain. We talked on this episode a lot about collective intelligence. We talked about how AI alignment requires human alignment. We talked about pro-social software versus anti-social software. And I think where it connects to GreenPilled is how a Web3 world outfitted with pro-social technology could help create a more regenerative cryptoeconomics movement. So really fun episode with Brigham, and I think that you're going to enjoy this episode.
ValleyDAO is an open global collective working to finance and democratize the governance of synthetic biology technologies to protect the future of our planet. Research and progress into synthetic biology is critically constrained by the world of nation-state regulations and bureaucracy from middlemen. But the potential that synthetic biology has for the world is massive. It can produce a world in total harmony with nature. We can grow stuff using cells like software. It's awesome. And the best part is we no longer have to pull carbon out of the ground to grow and maintain civilization. Don't you think we should be funding this? ValleyDAO does, and that's what they're here to do, to try and make the SolarPunk world of tomorrow a reality today. So join ValleyDAO right now and save the planet at valleydao.bio.
Hey, Brigham, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good today. It's a beautiful day in San Francisco. Actually, I'm wrong. I'm not in San Francisco. I'm in Topanga Canyon. Wow, I'm blowing it here.
No, if you're extremely online, then you're connected into the metaverse, and that's where you are. Or at least that's how I feel all the time.
That's right. I am everywhere now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk about Goodly Labs. You and I met at the Plurality Conference a couple months ago, and was just impressed by the work that you're doing. So, could you take us down the rabbit hole? What are you working on?
Yeah. With Goodly Labs, I really saw that in the world, we needed some way to get the people who kind of know about social reality through social science, working together with the people who actually build stuff at scale that can touch everybody in society. So yeah, when I was getting my PhD at UC Berkeley, I noticed this guy Zuckerberg is like, holy crap, he's got 1 billion people dancing his dance in just under a decade. It's to take 1,000 years. So there was nothing particularly wonderful or magnanimous or like collectively intelligent about Facebook. But if we were actually designing that stuff to make society better, to help people coordinate, cooperate at scale, wow, like what kind of world could we live in? So I put together Goodly Labs because I saw that no one else was really building the collective intelligence infrastructure that could allow us to be like reflexive and sociological and really smart as a society. So yeah.
The header on your website says building human capacity for human alignment. And I love that. Like every once in a while you meet someone who says back to you what you think you're working on, but in their own words. And that's how I felt when I was on the website.
Well, I've been feeling the same way, like seeing your tweets and stuff lately. And it feels good to know you're not like alone on the battlefield. Yeah. Actually, kind of switched up the tagline recently because we realized, this is the big challenge of our time. So many people are talking about AI safety and AI alignment, but alignment to what? How do we even define what it should be aligning to? And right now, the systems we have for just basic human alignment are failing. You got these political policy-making systems that sort of made sense in the 18th century. Back then, our best communications technology was like pigeon or a horse, and that's what we're using. Everyone needs to come to one town in a swamp and talk one person at a time. in a giant hall where 435 people. That is really old, archaic technology. It's really anachronistic in a world where we can bring global supply chains to your doorstep, and we can have each person could be theoretically talking to 1 billion people. The many-to-many communication, 24/7, 365 asynchronous communication we could be doing, coordinate and cooperate. There's just such a big delta between what we could be doing and what we're doing. We just want to build that capacity so that we can start aligning, so that we can tell the AI, be like this. This is what makes humans happy.
I got 2 takes that I'll take and put in the pot, and we can stir it from there. The first is this idea from Edward Wilson that we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. I just felt like, wow, in 10 words, such a concise way of talking about modern governance. But the other one is a take that I saw from Daniel Schmachtenberger, who's this meta-crisis alignment person, talking about how basically everyone's talking about artificial general intelligence alignment and how are we going to align the AIs with each other. And we've already got a decentralized alignment problem, which is the 7 billion humans on Earth. We've already got a GI intelligence problem, a general intelligence alignment problem with the existing humanities. And now you're just taking agents that are 1,000 times smarter and for now aren't embodied and putting them in the mix with each other. So, I like this idea you were telling me about before we were recording about AI alignment, meaning solving human alignment first, or the way those two ideas interact with each other. Maybe we could pull that thread a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start with a concrete example, and then we can talk about like more ways to address this big issue. So there's clearly a human alignment problem right now, and I know Schmachtenberger talks about this, and the social dilemma talks about this. There's the human alignment problem of first political parties and then social media companies hitting from the fracturing of reality. If a political party can feed you a certain slice of reality, it can get you to vote for it. And if a social media company can feed you an even narrower slice, it can keep your attention and keep you kind of like these debates.
So this is about how we form like common knowledge. How do we all share the same understanding of reality?
Yeah, because the 20th century institutions, plus, if you want to throw in social media as a new 21st century set of institutions, they're all kind of feeding.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say I'm not ready to cope with calling social media an institution yet, but I'll just have to digest that one as you're speaking. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Continue.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, but these institutions are kind of feeding these dynamics of narrative warfare, where it's more important for people to gesticulate and show what position they're in vis-a-vis other groups. It's more important to do that kind of social proof stuff than to actually get down to the heart of matters, get down to the truth, and try to understand, the consilience, the multiple different perspectives on the same object phenomena in the world. So one of the things that we're working on to try to build consilience, to build shared meaning, to build what we call shared reality, is just to give people the tools to easily see the ways that we manipulate each other. And I don't even like really hardcore propaganda, disinformation, manipulation. It could even be like a gentle way that we fool ourselves. There's all kinds of biases that we humans fall prey to. And so, we're looking at things like appeals to authority. We're looking at, the false dilemma, respective argumentative fallacies, ignoring selection effects, sunk cost fallacy, all these ways that we humans fool ourselves intentionally or not. We can label those directly onto the words and phrases of the content that we're consuming on the internet. And when all this content now, instead of just reading a news article and letting it all wash over you, we now can interject the appropriate doubt on the particular words and phrases that are committing these different errors. So that when someone's reading through, it's not even that they're reading an article and something at the top of the article says, this is fake news. disregard this entire thing, which is like too much into the narrative wars. But with these like very potent and specific introduction of doubt about a particular concept, it's strange. And it really is, and just realize like, oh, I kind of agree with this person, but they're also fooling me. This person's on side, but they're actually using a trick. Or the person's on the other side and they're definitely using a trick. If we can get more people to realize what those tricks are, how we're getting fooled, how we're getting manipulated, how we're manipulating ourselves and each other, we think we can start to constrain people into at least a way of sharing and talking about more and more of what we could call reality. What is the intersubjective reality? If we stop fooling each other, we'll start to get a better handle on what that is, and then we can at least achieve like a high fidelity disagreement and know what we're really talking about and what we need to compromise about.
I love that we're talking about high fidelity disagreements instead of just arguments, or what are they called? Flame wars online. They're two very different ways of framing people having different worldviews.
So we would just want to make it possible to live in a world where people are interested in this more high fidelity communication. And so we've built tools for that. And then we want to spread it as far and wide as we can. So all of this, because manipulation is super tricky, all of this actually requires humans doing cognitive tasks, like micro tasks, like mechanical Turkers, like online crowd work. Although we use some really sophisticated interfaces that we've created. They do these tasks, and once the humans have found, like 10,000 examples of the false dilemma, or 10,000 examples during selection effects, we can then actually feed that into machine learning systems that would create AI that can also label those sorts of mistakes. So it starts with a human process, but then the humans end up training the AI to do something very sophisticated that they can't currently do. So it actually is a super intelligence that humans can develop that's better than current AI super intelligence. But the kicker, the really awesome part of this, is that then we have an AI that can do this sophisticated thing, but we also know exactly how the AI was trained. We understand it. We can tune it. We can revise it. We can improve it. We can continually improve it. So we're not one of the things I'm worried about talking with folks in the Bay Area. There are some people who are really bullish on AI, and oh no, it's going to be great. We'll just handle our problems with AI and it'll solve our problems for us. I want our problems solved as much as anyone, but I kind of want humans to maintain some responsibility for ourselves. Like I'm not comfortable with a world where we're just kind of like the pets of AI, when we hope that it remains nice to us. It also just like what's the point of a human life? I mean, what's so cool about humans is our agency, our ability to change the world and our lives and our surroundings. And if we're just handing that off to AI, like what are we here for? Yeah.
I was reading the Singularity series, which is this book of it's a four book series that takes place in 2025, 2035, 2045, and 2055. Where over the course of the series, you can see how AI takes over society. And one of the sort of like plot lines that I thought was interesting was humans wanting to retain their agency, but the AI, like the AGI, works out that if that the humans are going to blow themselves up, and so the AI uses that as a pretense to like take over all of society and keep the humans from destroying each other. And I thought it was just kind of a interesting, of course, science fiction, not predictionary in any way, but way of thinking about like you humans kind of even don't deserve or don't know what to do with your agency was kind of like the main message I got out of that. But
I think it's critique. We haven't really proven ourselves, have we? I mean, and we and we've got these amazing technological building blocks just sitting here. We could be governing ourselves in really amazing, direct, democratic ways, where we're 24/7, 365, we're deliberating about the important issues. How do we coordinate? How do we solve problems together and delegate our resources? And we could be doing that. We could be determining online right now with existing technology. We could be determining like a long rank order list of our needs and our wants. We could be coming together, and we are a bit, and I'm glad that you're helping lead this too. We could be coming together in DAOs and big distributed networked organizations and actually structuring the functioning of those in new ways that are like highly effective and not so hierarchical. We could be developing the tools for human alignment and then using those tools to prove that we can come into alignment. Like all of that we can't be doing right now. And we're there's like a few people in the world who are kind of on this, and a lot of them are probably listening right today. So thank you everyone who's already on this. Let's more people, right?
I'd hope so. And this is my shill for if you know someone who should be listening, then don't forget to like and subscribe. Now that I'm a podcast host, I have to always say that. Share this with your friends if you think that they can help out here. But
yourself saying it just at the pub, and you're like, oh wait, I know.
Yeah, no. The thing that has bled out of the podcast into my social life is that I started calling the audience coordination, because it was like, this is a sub podcast of Bankless, and Ryan and David call their audience Bankless Nation. And so I started calling everyone coordination, and now it's kind of become a meme for like a regen network state out at the pub. So a coordination is a regen network state, and that's the one that's bled out of the podcast. So building movement is hard work and it takes persistence. And one of the things that I was really excited about with having you on, Brigham, is that you kind of have like a really interesting philosophy and sense-making capacity about this, but you're also making it happen at Goodly. And I'd love to spend most of the rest of the episode just going back and forth between the theoretical and the empirical. So can we take a dive into what Goodly is actually doing to stimulate this movement, and what tools you all are putting out there and what kind of results you've seen?
Yeah, totally. So there are kind of 3 projects right now that are scale ready, and I can talk briefly about any of those, and we can pull on those threads and go deeper. And what they all have in common is that they're all in one way or another collective intelligence tools. And the way we define this is it's kind of cute. It's just like any tool that multiple people can use, where the output of it is like you get 2 heads are better than 1, or 2,000 heads are better than 1, 2 million heads are better than 1. That is not a foregone conclusion. Like if you've been in a bad relationship, 2 heads can be much worse than 1. And there are all kinds of systems that we build. And in Western civilization in particular, we've built lots of systems where it might be, there might be a corporation with 50,000 employees, but the thing is organized so that the one person at the top can control everyone. So they're created in such a form to make sure that you don't have a situation where 2,000 heads are better than 1 or more powerful than 1 in that system. But that's like the basic idea of collective intelligence. And it's not easy to accomplish. There are lots of ways to screw it up. But what we're doing, we're having success with Public Editor already. This is the manipulation labeler, where we feed news articles in, and then what comes out are the articles with labels on them and scores from 0 to 100, indicating the credibility of the whole article, but also a score for each label, indicating each mistake in the article. And we put this system to the test with the EU. The EU Commission has their own kind of disinformation experts. And they gave us a set of 250 articles that were Russian propaganda articles, and they had already kind of identified the disinformation in them. So we took those articles and we put them into our system with a naive set of users, of annotators, of these people who are doing little micro tasks to analyze the article. And they're each doing a different task. They're looking at the reasoning, or they're looking at the way the evidence is used, or the way that probability is discussed, or how the quoted sources are being called upon to support arguments, the relevance of different arguments. They're each kind of looking at these different aspects of the article. But when you take all of their work and you stitch it together, you end up with like an extremely intensive assessment and review of the article. So we took those 250 articles from the EU's team, and we put them through a system with a bunch of naive users who had barely been trained. And then we gave the articles back to the EU team and said, what do you think? And they reviewed and said, wow, like in 100% of these articles, you're providing really valuable, helpful information for the reader. In 94% of the articles, we found the very same disinformation that they had found. And in 86% of articles, we found additional misinformation that they had not found. So the stuff really works. The next big question is like, can we get 2,000 people doing 15 minutes a day of tasks? And, ideally that's volunteers. And these are students, and these are retired folks, and they're stay-at-home parents, all of whom have some investment in making sure that we can actually share reality, and that there's some kind of curb on the extremism and the impulses towards extremism in the art of war. So if we can get 2,000 people doing 15 minutes a day, then we're covering like the top 100 news articles of the day. And those top 100 news articles are going to become all the radio and television stories tomorrow, and all those social conversations over the next 2 weeks. So we feel really confident we can have a great impact. And our next step with that project is just rolling it out in Europe. We're going to start with English-speaking Europe, but we're already getting pushback, I guess, or maybe not pushback. It's more like pulled in from multiple countries that are like, no, you need to do it in France, you need to do it in Germany, you need to do it in Poland, you need to, Romania really. So that's a system that we want to provide to, 50 or 100 different language communities around the world over the next 5 years, where they each kind of have their own capacity to rate and assess the quality of the news that's flowing in their language across the web. And then, as I said, when we have many examples of each type of mistake, we can do that we can have an AI that's doing that for all content on the internet. And we can, in fact, like sell to the AI companies the sort of governor that with this, ChatGPT will no longer create reasoning errors. It will no longer be manipulative in the way it responds. And I think that's going to be, that's important for a human, so that we tune him into alignment. It's going to really slow down the kind of the forces towards entropy of the variance. And then, we have some other projects that are like, we allow.
Do you mind if I camp on the disinformation project real quick?
Yeah.
I just had a question about it. So I guess I'm wondering, one of the ideas that I've sort of discussed with other people who are working on disinformation and misinformation is like, say you build a system that is like labeling the disinformation, and people are starting to trust it. It kind of like, if you deploy it like Zuckerberg style, then it creates a centralization risk, like an authoritarian person who can almost control what people think, right? And so is there any way to solve for that with decentralization or decentralized governance, or like some sort of check and balance if that system gets captured by one political party or something like that? Because I just, the audience here is very decentralization heavy and decentralized governance heavy. And I just feel like a lot of them are probably asking that question listening to that.
I'm glad you asked. Yeah. This whole system, we've been very careful as we've developed it, and we'll be careful as we roll it out to make sure that it's totally transparent and it's really neutral. So, we've been testing it with students and people from civil society orgs and just people off the internet. I'm Mechanical Turk. And the way that we construct the actual tasks, we have people kind of walking through, they're looking at one smaller block of text in the article, and they're walking through question by question. Like it's very stepwise. And it therefore kind of like extracts the user from their biases they might have about the entire article. So if they were reading the entire article, they might realize like from the beginning, like, oh, this is a very far left author, and I consider myself center right, so I'm going to trash this article, right? We want to avoid that sort of in either direction, of course. And so we kind of break the tasks out so that they're pretty debiased. Also, each task is done by multiple people independently, and then we're looking at an algorithm that's looking for a consensus among them, and that algorithm is looking for a consensus on each question and answer. But it also, we have an algorithm that looks for consensus in the aggregate to see, like, are people consistently seeing this the way that other people from the other side of the aisle are seeing it?
Yeah.
And we can make sure that we're not, that we're kind of like de-weighting or adding, de-weighting anyone who's really biased in the way that they're looking at stuff, or we can give them remediary of tasks.
The mechanism, I was going to interject, the mechanism designers I hang out with, we call that cooperation across social distance. So if two people on the right agree about something and two people on the left agree about something, that's not as strong of a data point as someone on the right and the left agreeing about something. That social distance matters a lot. Absolutely. Yeah. So we have some passive measures to learn like what someone's positioning is in the political ideological. And then we kind of distribute the tasks in a way that's trying to find agreement across those divides. And then, in terms of recruiting people, like we have to place ads in multiple places, right? Like we need ads on Break. We need ads on the Drudge Report in addition to ads on stuff that's more on the left side of the aisle. So I just want to make sure that we close that loop before we finish talking about the first product. But I also want to respect that we only have 20 minutes left, and you have two more products that you want to tell us about. So can we get into products number 2 and 3?
Sure. Yeah, the stuff as far as the stuff that's ready to go right now, we have a project called Demo Watch, and this one, it looks at this actually came out of my dissertation work at UC Berkeley. So I was studying social movements, and I was studying like peace and conflict, and the Occupy movement happened. And it was just kind of amazing looking at the literature in political science and sociology. There were so many one-off case studies about like, this is how things went down in this particular city with this particular movement at this particular time. But there wasn't really great research that looks at a bunch of movements and understands and has kind of the comparative leverage and the rich enough data to understand the dynamics of interaction between police and protesters. So there's a huge opening in that research on questions that take the form of like, why did the police act this way this time? Or why did the protesters do this in this situation? Really just like not settled knowledge on that at all. So I decided I wanted to look at the Occupy movement because all these movements were doing similar stuff at the same time for the same sort of reasons. And it sets up like a nice natural experimental design. That's really good comparative data to understand why police department and city government responded differently, but is fundamentally a movement happening all across. And in order to do that, I had to become a data scientist. Because I was stupidly ambitious. My advisors were like, yeah, pick 4 cities, pick 6 cities. And I was like, no, I want to study all 184 cities and towns across the US. So my hack was to teach the methods course at UC Berkeley. And I pulled the top smartest social science students in the social science movement. Where we went and scraped all the news stories and all the radio and television stories about all the Occupy movements across the land. And then we started analyzing the content, and the tools for analyzing the content just were not up to the task of doing really rigorous and intricate analysis that would pass muster in the journals, in the academic journals. So, not knowing how hard it would be to build software for really close content analysis, for this very rigorous consilience, I started doing it, and a few years later we actually had it working. So with that project, we're able to look at what the police and the cities and the protesters are doing at the strategic level, and the operational level and the tactical level. So what is the strategy of their campaign? What is the operation that they're leading this weekend? And what's the goal of it? And what's involved? How many people are showing up? Is it a rally? Is it a demonstration? Is it a march? What is it? And then what's actually happening within that event? And looking at everything happening at those three levels, moving through time across all of these actors. It's they're very intricate kind of event history models, but we're also using hidden Markov models to identify sequences of interaction and particular decision points in those sequences that tend to lead to violence, or predation or anything in between. So we can, with this project, like with the public editor project, like with the bullshit detection, we end up involving the public. And we ended up using these very transparent methods where lots of people can get involved and they can start to understand, how do we do social science? Wait, I can actually participate in this. Wait, I can actually look into every aspect of this project and understand how the data get processed and analyzed and how it produces the conclusions it does. So this is beyond just creating the tools for scientists to understand, we are succeeding, I think, in creating tools that give a member of the public, just a curious member of the public, a way to be involved that's actually helpful to the project and actually enrolls them in just the notion that we as humans can understand ourselves. And once we understand ourselves, even as we interact through these complex and fraught situations, we can actually find potential solutions, and then we can take the next steps of moving forward on the solutions. So that's probably enough on that project, because I want to make sure I talk about Same Page, which is kind of the way forward.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah. So I'm kind of going to gloss over. There's a project that's ready to go where we we take government documents and we parse them and database them and make them easily queryable. And that one's pretty fun. And we kind of launched that one with the Social Science Research Council a few years back. But it was kind of a soft launch. We need to get more marketing behind it. But that was kind of our first foray into governance, how can we make sure that we can watch our governors, watch our elected officials? But the thing that I'm most excited about right now is just moving to direct democracy tools. We can all, right now, if we want to have a say in policymaking, what do we wait every 4 years? And then these two people whose job it is to fight each other verbally, they get to fight about the policy once every 4 years, and then they're actually fighting about 50 policies at a time, but we only get to vote on one person. So all those 50 policy dimensions are boiled down to a single personal human dimension. It's not, I don't want to bag on representative democracy or the founding fathers or too much, because it was way better than kind of the monarchies that were prevailing at the time. But we can do so much better. We can do so much better
Right.
if we create systems where the people who are interested and willing to spend some time being deliberative can actually deliberate directly about the policy choices that are going to affect many of us. So we at Goodly Labs back in, I first started drawing stuff on napkins in 2007 for online governance. And I looked around and realized like, oh, I'm not the first person to have an idea that we online governance. And so found some great projects like David Price's debate graph out of the UK, and was kind of poking around with that. Mark Klein has the Deliberatorium at MIT, and I think after there were several that I was looking at the time. There's a little group of us at Berkeley Institute for Data Science looking into this, and I came away with the idea that Mark Klein's Deliberatorium probably nails the most important aspect of this, which is what I call deliberative grammar. Like, what are the kind of units of human statement or communication that need to exist in order for a community at various scales to talk about what are their issues, what are their problems to solve, what are potential answers or to those issues or solutions to those problems. What are arguments for or against those different solutions? What's the evidence for or against those arguments? There's like, with the right kind of deliberative grammar, you have something that is computationally traversable. You have something that can be visualized as a space of deliberation. You have something that you can easily build input-output interfaces into so that people can contribute. And this as well, like with Public Editor, it'll be a system where the more people contribute, the more they learn how to be an effective contributor, and kind of the more weight they have into the system. But a fundamentally open system, like anyone can come into it. And we're building these, and I say these because we actually want to build it in stages, where the first product is kind of like allows you to split a bill with your friends after dinner. Like, let's just tackle something easy, small group, like small deliberate. But start to provide these tools for people to work in even larger groups on more consequential decisions, and kind of train up the world into doing deliberation. And of course, a very obvious kind of customer community for this sort of stuff are DAOs. There's like, how many DAOs now, and how many of them want to be decentralized, democratic, but the forms of governance that we know from are mostly hierarchical. Often there's like leadership, and I don't say this to judge anybody. At Goodly Labs right now, we're in the process of DAOification. Like, we want to turn in that is non-hierarchical. But for the beginning, this is like a lot of my vision and ability to, inspire volunteers and get people, professors and grad students and industry folks working on these different projects. But yeah, with StainPage, we get to the place where we have the tooling to bring humans into alignment, and even the tooling to discuss what constitutes human alignment. So I'm really excited about that. We're also doing it in a pretty interesting way, in that we've come across other teams who are building similar or have similar ambitions. And every last one of these teams that we've come across has really smart people who are really good-hearted. If you're spending your time trying to build tools for human governance and alignment, you're probably pro-social, right? So we've all kind of talked to each other and just realized, like, you're trying to do it slightly different than we are, but that's not a bad idea. I want to know if it works or not.
Give a strong agree with you. I think that plurality of like multiple people approaching the problem in different ways is like a real feature and not a bug of the movement. It creates anti-fragility in how the ecosystem approaches things. And the thing I love about Web3 is composability, where you can work side by side and even like hand off scope to each other in between the different modules. So a big yes and to multiple people working and in solving the same problem, but in different ways, complementary ways.
Yeah. So we're a couple of meetings into like pulling together as this incubation cohort. We're calling it the governance garden, but it's the idea is that we'll do rounds of R&D and then kind of share our findings with each other. And it, I have to admit from the beginning, it may be that after a couple of rounds of R&D, I realized like, oh, my hypotheses weren't as good as this other team at MetaGov, or this new team that's coming out of like the AI Objectives Institute or something like that. And that's okay. That's okay, because the Omni win is still totally on the table. There's just like, if we do this the old way, where each team kind of does its work in the corner in the dark, and we each kind of like compete for funding, there's a high chance, I think, that we, as a community, we end up on some local maximum. It's like, yeah, we pulled together some tools and they're kind of okay. And then we were kind of stuck with that for 20 or 30 years when we could have had something way better. So I think that this project, the same page, which is just one team within the governance garden, I think this is some of the most important work that we're doing, that we will ever do. And I'm really eager to get moving on it, but I also have to kind of get the public editor project scaled and out the door. So yeah, there's a lot going on. There's way more work to do than Goodly Labs could ever do. So we are big proponents of having a large ecosystem of orgs doing this sort of stuff. Like, someone could look at it and say that we're trying to help competitors, and it's like, okay, fine. But I mean, competing for what? To do good stuff in the world? There's so much to be done. We've been launching this big innovation engine, this big pro-social technology innovation engine in Atlanta. We've got like 30 different organizations in and around Atlanta to build this government-funded innovation engine that kind of starts in the historically Black colleges and universities and pulls in engineers, mid-career folks from around the Atlanta region. And we've got the Martin Luther King Center as like a user testing community, and the Rainbow Push Coalition, the Atlanta Mayor's Office and their workforce development. All of these folks have kind of signed letters of commitment to this big proposal that'll bring in hundreds of millions of government dollars to create more and more pro-social tech. And this is like AI tech. It's decentralized. It's distributed ledger stuff, and it's internet communication stuff. So I'm really excited. There's so much work to be done. I'm extremely excited to be here talking with you and with your audience, because I know that they're the people who can actually do the work and have some inkling to do it. But I'm feeling a little scatterbrained talking to you, frankly, because I'm just like, but there's a million things to do, and I have to get everyone doing all of it somehow, because.
Yeah. Well, no, I feel it. I mean, I place multiple bets at a time also, and I think it's about going broad, but also going deep enough. And yeah, so I don't think you're coming off as scattered. I think that you're placing multiple bets, and I think it's just what I respect is people who have a strong theoretical understanding of what they're doing in the movement that they're building, and their time, their place in space time, and like human social progress space time, but also like are placing deep bets in multiple places. So I'm wondering if we could shift back into the theoretical about how this all aligns for you. I mean, we only have 10 minutes left. I can go a few minutes over. I don't want to do that to you, but
I'm cool.
What is cool? Well, I like, for me, the sort of like nut graph of this episode is building pro-social technology, and this idea that AI alignment, which everyone is buzzing about, requires human alignment. And so, how do we build pro-social technology that helps us evolve with the AI movement happening, but also, the trends of social media and Web 2 continuing to play out as well. what is your vision for how this all comes together? And I guess another way of asking this would be, if you're maximally successful in 5 or 10 years, what does the world look like?
I think that there's an important piece of the human alignment challenge that comes to us from human experience, certainly in the 20th century, but going back many centuries. And that thread is around legitimacy. What makes any authority legitimate? And I don't mean like a single dude, not like some single old white dude or something, but I mean, even something like the public editor system, a collective intelligence. What gives it authority? What makes it legitimate? And if we're going to solve human alignment, if we're ever going to get to a place where we're like, yes, we more or less, at least partially, solved human alignment, that solution is going to be something that a large majority of people look at it and say, that is legitimate. And for it to be legitimate, it's going to have to be transparent. It's going to have to include a lot of people from a lot of perspectives. We don't say something is legitimate because some AI lord created 1,000 AI bots and got together 10,000 of his human friends and then took over California, and we're like, oh, okay, that's legitimate just because of power. Like, we don't even as horrible as Western civilization is, as as much as we've killed each other, legitimacy is not won by brute force. At some point, you have to have some philosophy that aligns with what everyday humans imagine to be like kindness or caring. It comes back to the family. Like, our political economies have to somehow be at least to some alignment with the notion that we care for each other and we take care of each other. So these human alignment systems, the way that I see them working, most likely is through big online network communities. I think it could be DAOs. I think that's probably the vehicle for this, because representative democracies are not going to change. I don't think they're going to change. I don't think the current system is going to just wake up one day and say, we should give away our power to a bunch of internet citizens who have been talking online over the last couple of years about how we should spend the national budget. Like, it's not going to happen that way. I think what's going to happen instead is that we build the tools for human alignment, and the DAO communities become richer, denser, more populous, and more consequential, where more and more DAOs are performing for people the way that the social democratic state was, supposed to perform during the 20th century. So our public goods are going to be managed increasingly by DAOs, at the same time that we have a continuing kind of gridlock of those 20th century representative democracies. And I think more and more of the responsibility for human alignment and for human well-being will shift over to those DAOs. The question is, in my mind, is like, can we get that going fast enough that we can prove to ourselves that we can actually kind of govern and parent and care for ourselves better than the AI will be able to? To me, that's kind of like the historical race that we're in against the AI. It's not about will the AI wipe us out? I think that's possible. I don't want to like discard all of the doomsayers in a single statement. But I think the real issue is like, will we maintain responsibility for ourselves? Will we prove to ourselves that we can be responsible for ourselves and govern ourselves and take care of ourselves at scale? Because once we lose that, I don't know how we. I don't know. Maybe the AI takes over for 50 years and then slowly teaches us how to be responsible and gives us responsibility.
Gives it back. Yeah.
Seems super plausible. Yeah. Especially if there can be some who's in control of the AI. We don't see many instances of some entity or person controlling a lot of people and then just giving them power. Well, it just doesn't happen. Right?
Yeah. Giving up power is, I guess that, in a way that's a feature of democracies, is term limits and everything like that, but would be unprecedented in a sort of AI world. But let me try to say back to you what I just heard, and I can compare and contrast how we talk about these things. So there's already an alignment problem with the 7 billion humans on the planet that can't figure out how to align how they spend resources and how they interact with each other. And because of the rivalrous dynamics at that scale, we have misalignment. And then AI just raises the stakes by 1,000x intelligent agents are now out there. And so the question is, what is the way in which we can solve for alignment, first with the humans, but also the AIs? And by the way, there's exponential tech and AI is just one of them. So it's getting harder and higher stakes. How do we create legitimacy? There's multiple ways of creating legitimacy. The best ones are legitimacy by process, by participation, by fairness, by performance. And so building tools that are pro-social technologically that the humans can use eventually helps the AI adopt a more pro-social path from there. And although we haven't even solved alignment for the humans, at least we can start building the muscle and the coordination mechanisms to do that. And, maybe there's a path of meat-based governance to decentralized governance via DAOs, and that evolves. And then eventually it's something that the AI participates in. That's what I heard, but maybe I'm projecting a little bit of GreenPilled back on you.
I think we have a pretty good mind meld. I think we're seeing this possibility, and frankly, we need a lot more people to see that possibility, because it's
That's why we podcast or hear the possibility.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we're just coming up on time, so I'm glad that we feel like we've gotten to the mind meld moment. Is there anything I didn't ask that you want to say as we wrap up the show? And maybe we should leave a call to action for the listeners to check out Goodly Labs or any of the projects that you're involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love for people to check out what we're up to. We're in a moment where, like I said, there are 3 projects ready to scale, and all that we need for that is volunteers, like volunteers who are doing little micro tasks out on the edge of these collective intelligence systems, but also volunteers who, I know a lot of people are unemployed at the moment in San Francisco and have really good engineering skills. Maybe do a tour with Goodly Labs for 6 months or so, working on some of our stuff to get it launched up and ready to go. We're always in need of, hopefully not always, but we are currently in need of funding to launch this stuff. A lot of these tools we want to provide as public goods, but then we kind of have some freemium services that we can layer on top, so they can be sustainable pretty easily. I mean, just imagine, like, a lot of people probably want an AI bullshit detector that they can run their kids comment.
I want that for my DAO. I want to view the DAO governance proposals and be like, this person's using an ad hominem and that's an appeal to authority. This fact is wrong. So maybe I'll bootstrap your tool.
Yeah, I mean, but we think things are going to be like sustainable once they're up and going at scale. But yeah, that's the big challenge right now, is like, let's just get it out there in the world. We need to figure out ways. So people probably have better marketing mind than I do. Like, how do we make this more fun? How do we make this more like a movement? One of the things, I'm here at my buddy's place, and we're going to work on an AI bullshit genie that will kind of amplify and call out some of the bullshit that's in the news to help people understand, A, that these generators are kind of bullshit genies in every case, but B, that there is a lot of manipulation that is part of public discourse. these days that we can all kind of confront together and put ourselves into a shared reality. So we're trying to imagine like fun ways of getting more people involved, but this does need to be, I think if we're going to right the ship of the human species and take responsibility for ourselves, we need a lot of people kind of getting involved in little ways from time to time on this sort of stuff. Like, and that requires a little bit of a shift in consciousness. People realizing I'm not just a consumer. I'm not just someone who punches a ballot every 4 years. Like, I am actually someone of consequence who can shape my own society. And if I get involved with some of this civic engagement tech, like, I can actually be part of shifting the way that society understands itself and changes itself and improves itself as we go. So more power to that from anyone who has some energy to put into it.
Yeah, there's a word I recently learned called agentic, which is basically someone who has the power to control their own goals, actions, and destiny. And I thought that was just such a profound word to concisely wrap up the people that I'm building the movement with, that I love working with most are agentic. And, it takes a certain amount of deprogramming yourself after being a kid and being at school. And, sometimes there's life circumstances that prevent you from being agentic. And it's certainly a position of privilege to be agentic in the world. But, having the agency to help move the world towards more pro-social thing is, I think, one of the highest things we can spend our time on. So it gives me a lot of hope.
Well, you're giving me chills, because this is the term of the moment for me as well. Is like, how can we increase human agency? This is what's really valuable and special about humans. There are people in San Francisco now who are saying, like, if we just have an AI world and then at some point the humans don't exist anymore, that's okay. And I'm like, what? What about human agency? What about the fact that we can feel what we feel and experience, a sunset and eat some delicious meal and create music? And the AI is not going to have that experience, and it's not going to have that agency. It's going to have this deterministic agency that is, what a cold world without humans. So yeah, we need to cherish human agency, and we need to strengthen it. We need to make it deeper and more powerful, and link individual agencies together through some of these social tools, so that we can have a super intelligence about ourselves that makes us, both as individuals and as social beings, just more and more agentic, more and more powerful, more and more capable, caring for ourselves.
I think that's a great place to end it. And, I appreciate the work that you're doing in the theory space and also in the practice space, Brigham. So thanks so much for coming on the GreenPilled Pod, and can't wait to follow your progress of these products as they launch and your career arc as a pro-social technology creator. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks to the audience and Kevin for all that you're doing, because this is a big movement, and you're kind of a shining light in it. I'm really honored to be here with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Likewise to you. Peace and love.
Ciao, ciao.